Alright, before we get into this Art of War 3 replay, I just want to take a moment to highlight our opponents for this battle. One of them is Lucifer AQ, who is a 19-time medalist. And our other opponent is going to be Iron War 19 from the Deutsche Adler clan. So we've got two strong resistance players lined up for this battle today. Let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, welcome back to another Art of War 3 replay. I'm your host, John Cena, and today we're going to be showcasing a clan 2v2 battle. I'm going to be the blue player, and my ally, Peaky BD, is going to be the green player. So as you saw in the intro of this video, we're going to be facing off against two very strong opponents. Lucifer AQ is going to be the yellow player, Iron War 19 is going to be the red player. So let's go ahead and get into the action. We got some early scouting happening around the map, and as you can see here, both Peaky and I are starting to tech up as we continue to fight for early map control. I've got a gold attack boost going just so I can take care of the infantry that are roaming the map, and I'm going to see if I can try to secure the large container in the middle. Peaky is going to try to do the same on his end as well. A couple riflemen coming in from the red player, Iron War 19. Here comes a pretty big scouting force from the red player, and this is going to be too much for my assaults to handle. I'm going to have to pull back. Meanwhile, we got some action unfolding here. Some early game fighting for the large container. Peaky's doing a great job trying to defend, but yellow is relentlessly trying to reinforce for that container. Meanwhile, the two of us are continuing to tech up. We got a scout coming in from the red player, a coyote. They're going to get a nice visual of my base. Looks like Peaky has lost control of that container, and Peaky is going to have to fall back. So it looks like a little bit of armadillos there to support, so some heavier armor, and that's going to be able to be helpful for countering fortresses. Peaky, meanwhile, just has a handful of assaults here, but that is not going to be enough. I'm already in production of a hammer, and I've got a fortress as well. Originally, I was going to use the fortress for some map control early on, but it is not going to be applicable at this time. I'm getting a scout around the back, so this is a nice move. We're going to be able to see what the red player is up to. It looks like red is teching up to HQ3 at this time, and Peaky flagged the yellow player's base. Tells me to make a move if I can, but my scouts were cleaned up. So at this point, my thought is that I don't think I will be able to scout the yellow player by land without my scout getting killed. So I'm going to go ahead and produce cyclones to see if I can move cyclones over to scout out the yellow player and get a better scout on the red player. I put a bunker down on the side of my base there just so I can prevent any scouting coming in from the side. Peaky's going to go ahead and flag two spaces on the map. These are nice little cliff areas that I could potentially put a cyclone. My first cyclone unfortunately wasn't properly microed, and it's going to get cleaned up by those armadillos. I'm going to go ahead and produce a second cyclone. So now we can see I've got some visual control over the map here, which is nice. And now I'm going to move this cyclone over, and we're going to try to get some more visual on the map. We can see that there are some resistance forces in the middle of the map there, and a couple sniper towers. So red is well set up to control that middle area, which will be nice for any future container drops. And here's our first really nice scout of the yellow player's base. We can see that the yellow player is HQ3, has good infrastructure, and they got a couple hawks out already. So I think I'm a little bit behind in terms of development. Peaky's about on par. So let's go ahead and check out the red player. Looks like red is also HQ3, and they're producing Jaguars, so we should be expecting some sort of heavy armor during this battle. Hawk's going to come in from the yellow player. It's going to get a nice scout on my base. I'm going to do some light harassment as well onto my buildings. I'm going to get out a couple Typhoons here and put down a couple anti-air towers just so I can discourage any Hawks from hitting my base. My thought right now is, seeing that both red and yellow are in full production mode, I am anticipating that we are going to get hit here pretty soon by the red and yellow players. Peaky's got some ground forces moving in, and here comes another engagement now. We got some infantry and Zeus tanks for Peaky. Hawks coming in from the yellow player. They're going to be hit by those Typhoons though. And we can tell by the speed that the Hawks are flying at that they're using a gold boost of some kind. Right now, Peaky's trying to make a push for that container, but there's just too many forces here. And looks like yellow is probably going to be able to secure this container. Peaky's going to have to retreat. He's taking too many hits from those Hawks. And yellow's going to be able to secure that container. Jaguar's coming in from the yellow player as well, and Grenadiers. So Peaky's going to regroup here and has a torrent for backup, so it's some nice firepower to add to Peaky's side of things. But that is a lot of Grenadiers and Jaguars. So engagement continuing to unfold. These Grenadiers are dishing out massive damage to these Zeus, and Peaky is going to have to retreat. Let's see if yellow decides to push the assault, and the answer is no. Yellow will not push the assault at this time. Meanwhile, I'm continuing to tech up. My plan right now is to go for a full HQ3 army before teching up. I'm suspecting that red and yellow are going for full HQ3 armies, and possibly yellow's going to be teching up to HQ4 at the same time. So right now, got a lot of gold boosts that are being used. I'm using some gold supply boosts. Normally, I don't use gold supply boosts in PvP battles, but we're going to make a special exception for this battle, seeing that we're facing off against two very strong resistance players, one of them being a 19-time medalist. So I think at this point, I'm thinking that HQ3 is not going to be enough. I start to tech up. I tell Peaky that he should go HQ4 as well. Peaky's one step ahead though, and he's already HQ4, and he's producing a full ground army right now. We got some mammoths firing onto this bunker here, so some harassment from the yellow player early on. Infantry's going to go in, and we can see that yellow has a very nice concave set up with those Jaguars, so any sort of attempt to retaliate and move into that concave is going to end very poorly. Meanwhile, we got some action unfolding here. Peaky's moving a big ground army down the side of the map, and yellow's got a bunch of Grenadiers and Jaguars and a couple Armadillos in the mix. Those torrents are dishing out massive damage though against those tanks. Here comes yellow though with another attack from the center of the base. Peaky's in trouble here. He does not have an army in position, and I spot this, so I'm going to go ahead and move my ground army into the center, and I'm going to go and help Peaky defend. I threw on a gold vehicle scout boost so I can get my Zeus tanks there a little bit faster. Those are going to be able to dish out the most damage to help with defending. Here comes more reinforcements from the resistance players. And we can see here that my screen is lagging a little bit just because of the amount of action that's going on. We can see that the Chameleon and Grenadiers are dishing out damage in the center of Peaky's map. We're able to clean up these up pretty nicely though. Here come my Zeus tanks now trying to push back the resistance player. Here comes an Albatross from the yellow player, so we know for sure that yellow is at least HQ4 with the bomber and the Chameleon use. These mammoths continuing to fire onto our units. Here comes red though with some extra reinforcements. We're going to need to clean up these units as well. And a Chameleon flock moving in for the red player. This is a lot of forces moving in. I'm going to try to see what I can do in terms of reinforcing. Meanwhile, Peaky's moving in a shield generator to try and capture that container. I've got some more reinforcements coming in, and I'm moving my Typhoons into the fog, and that is to help reveal the units. I've also got a Cyclone as well, and my Torrents are going to dish out the damage. They're not super accurate, but I've got a few of them, and hopefully we should be able to deter the red player from continuing to press further into Peaky's base. My Torrents are going to be able to clean up that Chameleon, and the infantry that Peaky is producing to reinforce is going to be able to finish off that last Jaguar. Meanwhile, Peaky, surprise, surprise, is launching an attack on the side of yellow's base, and yellow is now on the defensive, trying to reinforce on this side of the base. Peaky's got a few Torrents, a couple Typhoons there, and a couple Zeus. And we can see that there is for sure HQ4. We can see that the HQ is taking heavy fire though. And we're going to see if Peaky can take down this headquarters. This is going to be big if he can do it. Can he take down the headquarters? And yes, he can. that tier 4 HQ for the yellow player is going to go down. This is a nice advantage for us, or so I initially thought. We see another HQ is going to go down for the yellow player. Peaky's continuing to try and press with his remaining ground units, but yellow is just relentlessly spamming units and is going to be able to push back Peaky. Meanwhile, I'm moving some ground troops into the center of the map. We're going to see if we can secure some nice control of that container, get some extra resources. And I'm just going to go ahead and flag that infantry moving in, possible reinforcements from the red player. So the red player knows that we're on the offensive, is now trying to counter. So we got this resources now, and right now we're just kind of scouting the area, getting an idea of what the red and yellow player are going to be up to while we're continuing to build ground units. My plan now is to go for a full HQ4 army, build up those command points, and then move. But Peaky says we're going to go now, so I decided we're going to commit now. We've got a pretty big ground army moving up the center now. That's a lot of Jaguars, though, from the red player. They're going to dish out massive damage against us. We got a Chameleon as well coming in to try and provide cover. It's not quite covering those Jaguars, though, and we're going to be able to dish out some good damage onto those Jaguars. We are making a huge push up the center now. Those infantry running into the fog to reveal the units on the inside of the fog. And we can see now yellow continuing to spam even more structures down. We're continuing to move our units in, trying to get within range to do damage, and there's so much fire coming down onto our units. We get a pretty big ground army to the yellow player's base. Let's see what kind of damage we can do. Torrents get deployed. They're going to do some big damage onto those Jaguars. The Jaguars still survive somehow. These Jaguars are incredibly tanky. And yellow is just continuing to reinforce now. And our ground army is disappearing just as quickly as it arrived. This is bad news for us. We're going to have to retreat, and we're going to regroup. So that attack was not quite successful. We're going to go ahead and regroup again in the center of the map, just so we can maintain control and momentum of the battle. So we're going to be able to push back these units here. Those units are not going to want to pursue, otherwise they're going to get destroyed. So right now I'm just upgrading another assault vehicle factory now, just so I can have double Zeus production. My ground army of choice is going to be a combination of Zeus, fire assaults, and torrents mixed in as needed. So we're actually going to go for a split army now. We can see here that I've got a bunch of defensive structures at the top of my base. That is to strongly discourage any sort of attack from the top. I'm going to go ahead and fall back. I do not want to move my units into that concave there. That is a very nice concave set up by the resistance fires. So the new strategy we're going to try is Peaky is going to try to attack from the bottom of the map. And I'm going to keep a ground force here in the middle of the map to see if we can kind of split up and get the defense to also split their units. Luckily for us, I've got a cyclone over the cliff. It's going to provide us some nice visual over the battlefield. And here comes units, though, from the yellow player. They're putting some fire down on us. Peaky says charge, so this is the time. We're going to go ahead and coordinate our attacks here. I'm going to move up the center. I don't expect to be able to punch through fully with this ground army, even though it is pretty big. But my plan is, again, to try and draw forces away from the side that Peaky's going to attack, so that Peaky can have more flexibility with pushing onto the yellow player's base. So here comes Peaky now. Big ground army from Peaky moving in. Let's see what kind of damage he can do. Yellow is now moving in along with red, reinforcing the front. Meanwhile, I'm continuing to clear out units. There are so many units in the front of the base, and there's so many units at the bottom of the map here. Here comes a bomber. It's going to score a direct hit on Peaky's army. Peaky's continuing to try and press. Meanwhile, I'm trying to continue to press here. Every little bit of damage counts. I'm just continuing to relentlessly try and produce units. Meanwhile, Peaky, though, his attack is falling apart. It's getting relentlessly pushed out of the base here. And Peaky's starting to lose some footing. I'm trying to see if I can reinforce again from the center of the map. We're going to try and see if we can double team onto yellow and put pressure on yellow. Yellow's now putting down more defensive structures and production structures. And we can see that Peaky, unfortunately, has had his entire ground army cleaned up, which was honestly very discouraging and not expected. Now we're continuing to press through the center, though, and we've got reinforcements streaming in, so this is a lot of units for my end, and Peaky's got some units to back up as well. Defensive structures coming down for the red player in efforts to help their partner defend. I'm going to go ahead and take out those sniper towers, though. I accidentally didn't micro my fire assaults properly, so my fire assaults ran off, and they're actually going to combat a sniper tower and a mammoth up top. So here we go now, trying to make another move onto the yellow player's base. We're taking out some production structures now. Just took out a special vehicle factory. Let's see if we can take out some more production here. But there are just so many grenadiers just coming out. And they're coming out so quickly, and each grenadier is doing so much damage. This is just too much for my ground army. And our ground army is losing momentum here. The yellow player is continuing to hold. So this is not looking good for us. Red is also continuing to reinforce as well. I got a torrent deployed now. We got more Zeus tanks and fire assaults moving in. I'm not sure if this is going to be enough to break through, though. Those sniper towers just finished building. Here comes a bomber from the yellow player. And this attack is losing steam. Peaky's going to make the call, and he's going to say, let's fall back. So we're going to go ahead and fall back. This is not looking good for us. Bombers coming in from the yellow player. They're going to score a direct hit on my Zeus tanks. Those Zeus tanks are demolished and no longer usable. So I got to rebuild my ground army now. So I'm going to make more Zeus, more torrents, more fire assaults. Meanwhile, I think Peaky is going to go with the space system, it looks like. So we can see now that Peaky's got a space system under construction. So we need to keep red and yellow busy long enough for us to launch the space strike onto the enemy. So again, I'm maneuvering my units around, deploying my torrents to get some fire down. I don't want to stay in one place for too long, otherwise that yellow player is going to score a direct hit. Let's see if the yellow scores a direct hit. Ooh, some of my units are going to go down. I'm going to lose a Zeus tank and a torrent. Luckily, I've been keeping my army moving, so most of my army is doing okay. So I've still got the cyclone over the cliff, providing some nice visual for us in order to be able to see what yellow is up to. So we got the mammoth fire coming in, though. Can't fully commit into an attack just yet, though. It's a little too dangerous for us to go that route. So I'm going to go ahead and pull back. I'm just continuing to produce units here to rebuild my ground army. So we can see a couple of units kind of scattered around the map here. So I think against any other normal player at this point, the amount of firepower that Peaky and I have been throwing at these enemies would destroy most enemies. But as previously mentioned at the beginning of the video, the yellow player is not a normal enemy. They are a 19-time medalist. And as I am experiencing with this battle, multi-time medalists are incredibly difficult to beat. So we got units now moving in. Ground army's kind of split. Here comes the bombers coming in. They're going to score a hit on nothing. So lucky for us, we're able to keep our army moving just to make sure that we don't get a direct hit from those bombers. That's not going to be good for either of us. So making another small push into the center, trying to get another cyclone onto the cliff. We could get a cyclone on there barely. You can see that the yellow player is trying to capture a container on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and move my units back. So looks like Peaky flags the entrance to the two players' bases, and the space system is ready. Let's see what kind of damage we can do. 25 seconds until the space system launches. I need to maybe move my units a little bit closer just so we can be in position to move onto the bases when they open up. So my units are still building, and here comes the space system. It's about to launch. We see the beam go up, and it's going to score a direct hit onto the entrance. And now Peaky's going to say charge, and we're going to move our whole ground army in. Let's see if this is the whole punch through that we needed to make our breakthrough. We're going to now try to break the yellow player now. We got a ton of Zeus tanks. and some torrents mixed in. We're going to split up again. This time Peaky's going to cover for me and is going to attack the red player while I'm going to move in, and I'm going to try to level yellow players as much as possible. Peaky's going to flag those factories. We want to get those factories down. If we can take them out, that's going to cripple the yellow player's production. So my Zeus tanks have been able to take care of that special vehicle factory, no problem. Grenadiers are starting to pour in for the yellow player though. And I'm going to be able to take an assault vehicle factory as well. This is good so far. Peaky says it's good game at this point. I say wait though, I'm not fully convinced yet that this is good game, because we got reinforcements streaming in. That is a lot of Grenadiers. They're doing so much damage. This Chameleon as well is hiding some Jaguars as well. It's really hard to see the Jaguars in the chaos. And my Zeus tanks just get absolutely demolished and cleaned up. So we're trying to see what kind of push Peaky can make with those Zeus tanks. And Peaky's just trying to chew through defensive buildings. And Peaky flags a point C, and I think Peaky is telling me to try and move some units in. I was trying to see if I could rebuild my army before sending it back in. Looks like Peaky's initial ground forces are going to get cleaned up. Peaky's going to flag my small group of units there, and is going to tell me to go ahead and move my army in. I'm going to try to move my army in. Let's see what we can do here. Maybe I should have moved my army a little bit sooner, but here we go. That's a lot of Chameleon Fog and Grenadiers. This is a lot for us to deal with. We're just trying to dish out as much damage as we can, but our units are getting chewed up by these defensive buildings. Here we go, making another push for the yellow player's base, and somehow yellow is producing more sniper towers to defend against our army here. And we are just trying to continue to press. Let's see if we can take out this assault vehicle factory. Meanwhile, we got red capturing some containers on the battlefield. That assault vehicle factory from yellow has gone down though. We're trying to push though. There's so many units in here in the mix. We're trying to see if we can reach that special vehicle factory in the back. We can see in the corner of the map here, of the picture, that yellow is teching up to HQ 5. So not only is yellow defending off our relentless pressure, but they are also able to tech up all in the midst of this. And for those of you watching, that is the power of a pay-to-win player with 19 medals. You are able to defend relentless pressure and attack with bombers and tech up to HQ 5. Peaky's going to lose a factory, so that's going to cripple Peaky's production for a little bit. Meanwhile, I'm continuing to just relentlessly use gold boosts and produce units so I can apply pressure to the yellow and red player. So Peaky now moving the units down to the bottom of the map here. I've got units in the center again for map control. It looks like we got a dragonfly on the top of that cliff there, and that dragonfly is going to provide some visual control over the area. Here come some bombers again though from the yellow player. Let's see where these bombers are headed. They're headed straight for the space system. That space system is going to get leveled, so no more space system for Peaky. Peaky was thankfully not producing a space strike at the time, so he's going to be able to continue to try and rebuild his ground army. Here comes another bomber from the yellow player. It's going to score a direct hit on the special vehicle factory. Peaky's almost lost that special vehicle factory. Here comes another bomber from the yellow player. This bomber is going to finish off that special vehicle factory, and it goes down. Peaky is getting some pressure put on, and this is going to be tough to try and produce enough units to keep the pressure going. We want to keep that pressure up because if we let red and yellow breathe, it's going to be very difficult to beat them. As we can see here, red is putting down some mines, so we're going to need to clear this out, do a little bit of force firing with the Zeus and the Torrents. Now we're going to move in my ground army. Here comes some bombers though from the yellow player. Looks like they're not headed for my ground army though. Where are they headed? They're going straight for my production. They're going to score a direct hit on my factories. I'm going to lose a barracks and a special vehicle factory. That's not too bad of a loss for me, thankfully. I'm going to be able to replace that pretty readily. Barracks are relatively cheap compared to assault vehicle factories. here we go. We got some more pressure in the center of the map here. And I've got Zeus tanks and Torrents just trying to create a concave around those resistance units. Meanwhile, Piki making another push onto the yellow player's base, and he's going to be able to take out an airfield, so no more bombers are not going to be able to dock there anymore. Meanwhile, I'm applying pressure. Piki's going to say charge once again. There's 3 chameleons in that fog. Those chameleons are moving back. I'm going to try and move my army forward. Piki's moving his army forward as well at the same time. And so we are now trying to once again apply pressure on both sides of the base. There's a lot of Jaguars deployed inside this chameleon fog though, and I cannot see what my units are doing. I'm going to take out a special vehicle factory, but it's going to cost me a lot of Zeus tanks to do it. My Torrents are not properly micromanaged in this moment, and they're only going to be able to get off a volley or two before they get cleaned up by those Jaguars. Meanwhile, Piki is still trying to push through the yellow player's base, but Piki is taking so many casualties and is not making any ground on this yellow player. This yellow player is continuing to relentlessly defend against Piki's assault and my assault. So we're now producing more ground units now. We've only got a fraction of our original ground armies at this point. I'm also continuing to rebuild the infrastructure that I had previously lost. So that way we can get some more Torrents out on my end. Looks like Piki is now flagging for us to move to point F. So I'm going to go ahead and move our units there. We're going to see if we can capture that container there, just so we can get some of those extra resources and deny resources from the yellow player. Yellow's coming in though with a lot of grenadiers, and we can see some albatross moving in, probably to hit Piki's base. Let's see what these bombers are going to hit. They're going to hit another structure on Piki's base, so Piki's still taking pressure from those bombers. Meanwhile, we got an army moving in from the yellow player, some grenadiers and a couple mammoths. Looks like we're able to put some good pressure though, and our main goal is to capture this container here. We're going to be able to capture that container successfully. And now I'm going to move my units back. We got a grenadier here. We're going to go ahead and take care of that grenadier. So Piki now is just applying some pressure to these mammoths and trying to push back the mammoths. Meanwhile, we got red moving in with a lot of Jaguars and chameleons, so I'm going to need to re-establish a defensive line. I've got a Torrent, thankfully, and a few Zeus tanks here, so I just need to get my units in position. If I can take out that chameleon, it's going to make it a lot easier to take care of these Jaguars. The chameleon goes down, and I'm going to be able to take care of these Jaguars. Look how the Jaguars get shredded by my units. Again, you can see and note that I'm using a gold attack boost on this battle, and that is the only way I'm able to keep pace with the red player and the yellow player. So Piki now is going to pull back the Zeus tanks, and Piki suggests that we should change tactics. So we're not going to try and hit yellow anymore. What we're going to try and do is we're going to try and hit the red player. So in order for me to make an attack on the red player with the most direct route possible, I need to clear out some mines. There's some mines that the red player planted in the beginning of the game. I don't want to just send my army in. That's just going to lead to a lot of casualties. So in addition to producing my standard ground army, I'm going to need to be able to produce the fortresses just to clear out the mines. You can see that there's some mines here, and now I'm going to try to do some force firing to destroy those mines. My force firing definitely could be better. We can see that my Zeus tanks here not quite being microed properly. We can see my fortress is nowhere near max as well, so it's taken a while to take out mines. Here comes a ground attack from the yellow player. Yellow's putting some pressure onto Piki's base from the bottom part of it. And so now Piki's going to tell me to fall back. It looks like Piki's going to move a ground army up towards the top of the map. And at the same time, Piki's got to defend this attack from the yellow player as they're continuing to try and push with grenadiers and chameleons. But looks like the chameleon's going to run out of fog, and it looks like the red player was not quite prepared for Piki to make this move. So now I'm going to move my ground army a little bit closer. I'm waiting for Piki to get into position, and Piki's going around the side, and there's only a porcupine and a sniper tower to stop Piki's advance at this time, but red has plenty of time to get a defensive line set up at the main entrance on the top side of the base. Piki is now making another push though from the bottom, so this is a multi-front assault that's happening. So we got Zeus up top, a couple Zeus and infantry at the bottom, and then my primary ground army in the center here. I've got my fortresses still trying to demine. Peaky flags my army, and you're probably wondering what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get my army into position before I strike. I'm going to go ahead and attack point C. This is the main entrance, and I want Peaky to attack the top of the base. We're going to try to see if we can split the defense again. Again, I'm not sure that this was the right decision. This is the decision we made in the moment of the battlefield. And so we've been able to take out some defensive structures, and now we got some vehicles moving in from the red player. We got Jaguars and Mammoths deployed, but I've got Zeus and Torrents putting some heavy fire down. Meanwhile, Peaky's attack is getting cleaned up on the top of the map. Peaky's got another attack on the bottom, though. It's getting defended pretty nicely. We got a lot of Grenadiers coming in, though, and these Grenadiers are dishing out some good damage to my Zeus tanks. Here comes some bombers from the yellow player. They're going to score a nice hit on the HQ for Peaky. We can see now we've only got 10 minutes left in the battle, and our activity is 81% compared to the resistance players at 24%. Now, there are two ways you can win a PvP battle. One of them is you destroy your enemy's base entirely, and another is if neither side is able to destroy the bases of the other person fully, whoever has more activity can win the battle. So right now we are way above the resistance players in terms of activity. I don't know that we're going to be able to break through. Their defense has been absolutely solid, and so we may have to try to go for the win here on activity. We're trying to see if we can hang on here for the last 10 minutes or so. Peaky's getting relentless pressure from those bombers, though, and because he doesn't have an HQ up yet, I need to continue to press the assault as much as possible. So my Torrents are raining down some heavy fire onto the red player's base, and I'm just trying to stream in as many Zeus tanks as possible and heavy assaults. And we got some Grenadiers, though, coming in to relentlessly defend against my units. I'm going to take out a special vehicle factory, but it's going to cost me a lot of Zeus tanks to do it. Those Grenadiers are so strong. They're doing so much damage to my Zeus tanks. My Torrents are trying to dish out damage to those infantry. Peaky's HQ is going to take another hit, but thankfully Peaky's HQ is going to live to see another day. Meanwhile, my ground attack is losing momentum. My Zeus tanks were getting cleaned up, and Torrents by themselves are not enough to push through. These Grenadiers are going to be able to clean up my units here. So, 8 minutes to go now. We got to continue to keep pressing here. And now I'm just trying to continue to keep reinforcing as much as possible, trying to push as much as I can into the red player's base. We've got some more Zeus tanks and fire assaults coming in. The fire assaults trying to deal damage to those Grenadiers, but it looks like the red player is trying to get some sniper towers out to deal with my infantry. Here comes a Mammoth. The Mammoth is going to get deployed, and it's going to put some fire down on my units. Meanwhile, we see an alligator from the red player, very unexpected on this map. Naval builds are actually not great on this map, so my guess is that that's a desperation move. I think both sides know that if the resistance players don't come up with a miracle soon, they're going to lose this battle on activity. The sniper tower is continuing to put fire onto my units. My army is slowly making ground onto the resistance side, but they're taking so many casualties. Peaky is now trying to move in another ground army onto the yellow player's base. My units continue to try and push. There's so many units still streaming out from the resistance side. Here comes that gator again, putting some damage onto my supply center. Trying to move my units now some more further in. There's just so many sniper towers here, putting a ton of fire onto my units. I'm gonna throw on another gold vehicle attack boost. Peaky's gonna flag the bottom of yellow's base, and I tell Peaky to just make a full commit to push onto the yellow player's base. And Peaky writes GG again, and he writes that they are out, and this is a surprise. And I don't believe it at first until we get the notification that both the red and yellow players have surrendered. So I'm still trying to move units in, trying to do as much damage as possible. Peaky's now finally getting into the base, and we can see there are no more units coming from the yellow player. So I write a bunch of affirmatives. That's when we got the notification that the players surrendered. All right, that is the battle. The rest of it's just us leveling their bases. Hope you all really enjoyed this non-stop action. And shout out to Peaky BD for being a great partner for this battle. We will see you in the next battle.
Victory.